Hi there, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss to you how is the process of research. Why research? Probably because this is the one way for me to help you understand that as an educator, we are supposed to conduct researches in order for us to improve the way we do things for the benefit of our learners. Now, as educators, what are the important things that we need to understand about conducting research? Research involves a process of interrelated activities rather than the application of isolated, unrelated concepts and ideas. Educators practice research following a general sequence of procedures, from the initial identification of a research problem to writing a final report on research. This means that understanding the sequence or flow of activities is central to inquiry. Today, I am going to discuss to you the steps in the process of research and the inclusion of concepts and ideas within this process. As an educational researcher today in this time of pandemic, we need a large toolbox of approaches to study the complex educational issues in our society. No longer can we as educators use only experiments or surveys to address our research problems. Educators in this new century, whether conducting research or reading research for self-information, need to know about the difference between quantitative, qualitative, and combined approaches to inquiry. And of course, to have an in-depth understanding of the multiple research designs and procedures used in our studies today. And so make this research making or study an exciting journey. And so for a start, I will be providing to you how are the process involved in conducting research. Now let me share with you my presentation. Now we are going to discuss about Introduction to Educational Research, which is called from the book of Sir John Creswell, titled Educational Research, Planning, Conducting, and Evaluating Quantitative and Qualitative Research, 4th edition. So let us start by these session objectives. And this is our week one. So at the end of this session, you should be able to first, define and describe the importance of educational research. Second, describe the process of research. And of course, identify the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative research. Now, in these three objectives, we are going to be familiarized with what research is about, specifically educational research, what is its importance, and how it is really in need for among us educators, and identify the process of research, be familiar with them, and we can be able to differentiate quantitative and qualitative researches based on their characteristics. So let us start. Now, what is research? Research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic or issue at a general level. And this consists of three steps. First is to pose a question, to collect data to answer the question, and to present an answer to the question. This should be a familiar process because you engage in solving problems every day and you start with a question. Of course, when you have a question, you collect some information. And then from those information, you derive an answer. Although there are a few more steps in research than these three items, this is an overall framework for research. When you examine a published study or conduct your own study, you will find these three parts as the core elements. We call them the core elements. But not all educators have understanding and appreciation of research. For some, research may seem like something that it is important only for those who are vying for promotion or for those who are in the third level management or in as supervisors and principals. But let me tell you that all educators, all teachers are considered what we call um, researchers. Okay, why do we conduct research? First, research adds up to our knowledge. When we say it adds up to our knowledge or it adds up to our knowledge, education is a strive for continual improvement. This requires addressing problems or issues and searching for potential solutions, especially at our profession. Adding to knowledge means that educators undertake research to contribute to existing information about issues. We are all aware of pressing educational issues, especially in this time of pandemic. How effective is our online distance learning? How effective is our modular distance learning? How do we fare uh, as an educational system in this time of the health crisis? These are issues that are of need of answers. And so this is the very right time for us educators to conduct research. And now research plays a vital role in addressing these issues. Though research or through research, we develop results that help to answer questions. And as we accumulate these results, we gain a deeper understanding of the problems. In this way, researchers are much like bricklayers who build the wall brick by brick, continually adding to the wall and in the process creating a stronger structure. And so, as educators, why do we need to know how to conduct research? Of course, research is also important because it suggests improvement for practice. Armed with research results, teachers and other educators become more effective professionals. This, as I said, involves a process of interrelated activities rather than the application of isolated, unrelated concepts and ideas. And as an educator, we have to be organized in a way that we can solve issues and concerns following a systematic approach. Educators practice research following a general sequence of procedures, from the initial identification of a research problem to the final report of the research. And of course, understanding the sequence or flow of activities is what we call central to inquiry. Now, talking about the research process, we can see that this process is the one that we are going to follow in terms of coming up with a study. First, for us is to define the research problem, review the literature, formulate hypotheses, design research, collect data, analyze data, and interpret and report. So this is the research process cycle I am talking about. For us to start with the research, you have to have a topic in mind. And in having a topic in mind, you are to understand what the topic is all about. What are the pressing issues and concerns undermining that topic? So you specify a problem, you justify it, and suggest the need to study it for the audiences. Now, in order for you to justify and suggest the need to study, is for you to locate literature, okay, that is related to your topic or to your research problem. In reviewing the literature, you need to locate the resources, select the resources, and summarize those resources. After doing so, you have to specify the purpose of your research. In this section or in this part, you are to identify the purpose statement, to narrow the purpose statement to research question, then later on come up with the hypothesis, and then collect data, wherein you select the individuals to study, you obtain permission, you come up with the ethical consideration, and gather the information. And then, after collecting the data, you now go on analyzing and interpreting the data, wherein you break down the data, you represent it, and you explain the data. Okay, from analyzing and interpreting data, you also have to report and evaluate the research, or you have to have someone to evaluate your research. You have to decide your audience, you structure the report, and to write the report sensitively. Okay, in order for you to really analyze, okay, the direction of your research, you always go back to your research problem in order for you to see whether you have met the objectives that you have set in writing the study. So to further understand this research process cycle, let us go on among it individually. Okay, so there are things that you need to remember in order for you to really choose a particular topic. So when we talk about a research topic, this is the broad subject matter that is needed to be addressed by the study. So when we talk about modular distance learning, this is, or when we talk about distance learning is your research topic. This is a broad subject. Now, how do we contain this research topic? You have now to identify your what we call research problem. What is your research problem? Your research problem is a general educational issue, concern, or controversy addressed in research that narrows the topic. So what is our research topic? Our research topic is distance learning. So what about the research topic distance learning? Okay, so you might want to check on the effectiveness of the distance learning delivery, or the use of um, distance learning, okay, in continuing education, okay, in this time of pandemic. That is now your research issue. Okay, so what is the purpose? The purpose of that is the major intent or objective of the study that is used to address the problem. So now you have distance learning as your research topic, and you want to identify if it is effective or not as a learning modality in this time of pandemic. That is now your purpose. Now, having that purpose, you now go on coming up with what we call that you are now going to narrow down your purpose into a specific research question. Research questions narrow the purpose into specific questions that the researcher would like answered and addressed in the study. In having a specific research question, you know how to come up with a data collection and a probable answers, okay, that you can gain from the research question in order to gain, okay, or acquire or address the purpose of the study. Okay, and so digging deeper into the research problem itself, as we have said, research problems are the educational issues, controversies, or concerns that guide the need for conducting a study. Good research problems can be found in our educational settings. So how do we distinguish among the topic, the research problem, the purpose, and the research questions? So what we're going to do is just see, okay, the concept from general to specific. As I have said, if your topic is distance learning, you might consider thinking of or observing your environment at a specific time, and then identify what issues and concerns confront this topic that you have, okay? And then you might come up with the lack of students in distance education classes. And at this point in time, you will be thinking, why lack of students? Because everybody's undergoing distance learning. So you navigate on what are the specific issues and concerns that is confronted with distance learning. So then you shape your purpose. Okay, in shaping your purpose, you now come up with what we call the purpose statement. Okay, your purpose statement might be to study why students do not attend distance education classes at a community college. Okay, and then from this purpose statement, you have to design what we call the research questions that will help you to collect data in order to achieve your purpose. So you might be asking questions like, does the use of website technology in the classroom deter students from enrolling in a distance education class? Although this is a dichotomous question, this is not supposed to be your question, but you have to have a question which will provide you, okay, a specific answer with specified with your purpose statement. Okay, and so what are now the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative research? As we are talking about the different designs or methods in research, we have quantitative method and we have qualitative method of research. But how do they differ? Let us take a look at them in terms of their differences by checking on their characteristics. So the flow of the research process through quantitative and qualitative research is as followed. They both start, of course, with research, regardless of the method, starts with the topic. Okay, you have to begin with the topic in mind, and with this topic, you concentrate with a particular issue or concern, and we treat that as the research problem. And when we have the research problem confronted by issues and concerns, now we navigate review of related studies and literature in order for us to fully understand our topic or our problem at hand. Helping literature review helps us to conceptualize, identify, and at the same time conceptualize our study in such a way that we shape now the purpose of our study. We begin to realize why we are conducting the study. What are the elements or what are the factors that were studied already by other researchers, and what are the factors that have already um, discussed, that were already discussed by other researchers. What are contradicting, what seems to be similar in their discussions, in their findings. So those are things that would help us really understand, okay, our purpose in terms of the conduct of our research. So from the purpose, you now design your research questions based, of course, on how you were able to conceptualize your study through the help of a literature review. Okay. Although there's a difference between quantitative research and qualitative research in terms of its use of a literature review, where in quantitative research, we form our concept based on literature review, not so much in the qualitative research, I mean. Because in qualitative research, the use of literature review is for you to really have other information, or to gather information other than what you have in mind at this point in time. Um, which of course in qualitative research you do not have to have the, or you do not have to form the concepts through the literature review. Okay, So these are the research designs under the following method: quantitative research and qualitative research. So after identifying, okay, the method on how you can best achieve the purpose of your research, whether it be under quantitative or qualitative research, you now have to choose the design of your study. Now, in order for you to design the study, you can take a look at or further understand, or you have to further understand the different designs under these methodologies. So for quantitative design, we have um, experimental, correlational, and survey. For qualitative design, we have grounded, ethnography, narrative, or sometimes they call it phenomenological. And we also have mixed methods and action research designs. Whether what methodology you choose in order to see what is the most appropriate methodology in achieving the purpose of your study, these now differ in terms of sampling, instruments, data analysis, interpretation, and discussion conclusions, limitations, and future research. So these are elements that we have to consider in order for us to decide on how we can best direct our study to fulfill the purpose of conducting the research. And so let us try to differentiate quantitative research and qualitative research based on their characteristics. So when we talk about quantitative research, this is a research which describes a research problem through description of trends or a need for an explanation of the relationship among variables. This provides a major role for the literature through suggesting the research questions to be asked and justifying the research problem and creating a need for the direction, purpose statement, and research questions or hypotheses of the study. Quantitative research is used also when you are creating purpose statements, research questions, and hypotheses that are specific, narrow, measurable, and observable. Collecting numeric data from a large number of people using instruments with preset questions and responses is also one of the characteristics of quantitative research. Analyzing trends, comparing groups, or relating variables using statistical analysis and interpreting results by comparing them with prior predictions and past research is also a form that is equated with quantitative research. Okay? Writing the research report using standard fixed structures and evaluation criteria and taking an objective unbiased approach is also a characteristic of a quantitative research. Now let us check on the major characteristics of quantitative research. In terms of the research problem, the research problem under quantitative research is based on trends in the field or on the need to explain why something occurs. Describing a trend means that the research problem can be answered best by a study in which the researcher seeks to establish the overall tendency of responses from individuals and to note how this tendency varies among people. So, in terms of variables, some quantitative research problems require an explanation on how one variable affects another. Variables are an attribute or characteristic of that researcher's study in order to determine whether one or more variables might influence another variable. In terms of reviewing the literature review plays a major role in two ways: justifying the need for the research problem and suggesting potential purposes and research questions for the study. In terms of research questions, how do the research questions were designed? Specific, narrow questions to obtain measurable and observable data on variables. The major statements and questions of direction in a study, The purpose statement, the research questions, and the hypothesis are specific and narrow because the researchers identify only a few variables to study. From a study of these variables, you obtain measures or assessments on an instrument or record scores on a scale from observations. In terms of quantitative data collection, there is a need for an instrument to measure the variables in the study. An instrument is a tool for measuring, observing, or documenting quantitative data. It contains specific questions and response possibilities that researchers establish or develop in advance of the study. And in terms of the data analysis, in quantitative research, data is analyzed using mathematical procedures called statistics. This analysis consists of breaking down the data into parts to answer the research questions. Statistical procedures such as comparing groups or relating scores for individuals provide information to address the research questions or hypotheses. Then, results are interpreted in light of initial predictions or prior studies. This interpretation is an explanation as to why the results turned out the way they did, and often explain how the results either support or refute the expected predictions in the study. Now, in terms of reporting and evaluating, the overall format for a study follows a predictable pattern: introduction, review of the literature, methods, results, and discussion. This form creates a standardized structure for quantitative studies. Now, what about qualitative research? What are the major characteristics of qualitative research? Exploring a problem and developing a detailed understanding of a central phenomenon. Having the literature review play a minor role but justify the problem. And stating the purpose and research questions in a general and broad way so as to the participants' experiences. So, collecting data based on words from a small number of individuals so that the participants' views are obtained is one of the major characteristics of a qualitative research. Analyzing the data for description and themes using text analysis and interpreting the larger meaning of the findings is a qualitative research. And of course, writing the report using flexible, emerging structures and evaluative criteria, and including the researcher's subjective reflexivity and bias. Now, let us take a look at qualitative research in terms of its characteristics. In a research problem, qualitative research is best suited to address a research problem in which you do not know the variables and need to explore. The literature might yield little information about the phenomenon of study, and you need to learn more from participants through what we call exploration. In terms of what we call the central phenomenon, a central phenomenon is the key concept or idea or process studied in qualitative research. Thus, the research problem requires both an exploration and an understanding of its complexity. The literature review plays a less substantial role at the beginning of the study than in a quantitative research. In qualitative research, although you may review the literature to justify the need to study the research problem, the literature does not provide major direction for the research questions. The reason for this is that qualitative research relies more on the views of the participants in the study and less on the direction identified in the literature by the researcher. In terms of the purpose statement and the research questions, qualitative research are stated so that you can best learn from participants. You research a single phenomenon of interest and state this phenomenon in what we call a purpose statement. In terms of data collection in qualitative research, you collect data to learn from the participants in the study and develop forms called protocols for recording data as the study proceeds. These forms pose general questions so that the participants can provide answers to the questions. Often, questions on these forms will change and emerge during data collection. Examples of these forms include an interview protocol, which contains of 4 or 5 questions, or an observational protocol in which the researcher records notes about the behavior of participants. Moreover, you gather text or word or image or picture data. Transcribed audio recordings form a database composed of words. In data analysis of a qualitative research, typically you gather what we call a text database. So the data analysis of text consists of dividing it into groups of sentences called text segments and determining the meaning of each group of sentences. Rather than using statistics, you analyze words or pictures to describe the central phenomenon under study. The result may be a description of individual people or places. In some qualitative studies, the entire report is mostly a long description of several individuals. The result may also include themes or broad categories that represent your findings. In qualitative studies, in which you both describe individuals and identify themes, a rich, complex picture emerges. From this complex picture, you make an interpretation of the meaning of the data by reflecting on how the findings relate to existing research. By stating a personal reflection about the significance of the lessons learned during the study, or by drawing out larger, more abstract meanings. This is how we differentiate the types of quantitative and qualitative research designs and their primary use according to Creswell. Okay, in terms of qualitative or quantitative research designs, we dwell more on what we call intervention or non-intervention research. Okay, how do we do that? And how do we choose the appropriate methodology or design for the appropriate methodology? Explaining when our purpose is to explain whether an intervention influences an outcome for one group as opposed to another group, then we use experimental research. When we associate or relate variables in a predictable pattern for one group or individual, then we use correlational research. However, when our intent is to describe trends for population for a people or for a group of people, we use survey research. Under qualitative research design, when our intention is to explore common experiences of individuals to develop a theory, then we use grounded research. When our purpose is to explore the shared culture of a group of people, then we design it into an ethnographic research. But when we explore individual stories to describe the lives of people, we use narrative or phenomenological research. Okay, but we can also use a combination of quantitative and qualitative research, wherein when we combine quantitative and qualitative data to best understand and explain a research problem, we use mixed method research, but using quantitative and qualitative data for individuals to study education problems that they face in their settings, and of course, is geared towards having a solution for specific issues and concern, then we do action research. So that is how the process of educational research is. So are you ready to start your own research? Okay, Thank you. That is an introduction to our educational research.